Zohran Mamdani, it appears as though his radical communist ideas are the least radical thing about him. Wait till you see one of the people identified as an intern on his campaign and the way she behaves with New York police officers. It's horrific. Hey, remember Kami Mamdani? That's Zohran, by the way, to you, 33 years old. And he's wanting to be the mayor of New York. And he's got some real radical stuff in his background that goes well beyond just his, communist links. In fact, there's somebody who's now been reported to be a member of his campaign staff who had an unbelievable confrontation, like a bone-chilling, frightening confrontation with police officers during one of their pro-Hamas marches. We've got the video of it, and we're going to show it to you in a second. But first, the latest scandal about this guy, not that it's going to matter at all in New York. I mean, he's got the D after his name. He wants government control of the economy, and he's promising free stuff. So, of course, he's going to win. But the latest scandal apparently is that when he applied for college at Columbia, he claimed he was black. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, he said he was African American and he was born in Uganda, so that means he is African. No. Let me be clear. He said he was black. The category on the form to fill out was black/African American. It's clear what that category meant. And, this whole African American thing, we used to joke around about how Elon Musk was African American, right? Because he's from South Africa. But African American is a very specific term that was created by Jesse Jackson back in the late 80s, early 90s, because he didn't think that black people in this country should just be defined by the color of their skin, by their pigmentation, that it perpetuated the importance of skin color. This was back in the good old days. See, now today's radical left-wing people, they think that your skin color is, in fact, the most important thing. But back in my time, back in the 90s, when the Generation X post-Martin Luther King era, we actually believed that the color of your skin was not supposed to be important. So Jesse Jackson had this big idea. It's like, stop calling us black because that defines us by our skin color. Call us African American, just like Italian Americans, just like Jewish Americans, just like British Americans, Mexican Americans. You don't define them by their skin color, so stop doing it to us. We're African American. But let me be clear. We know what African American means. African American means a black person in America. Like when you see a black actor from England, Idris Elba, for instance, you don't refer to him as an African American. You know why? Because he's not American. He's British. And in the UK, they don't refer to them as African English. They're black. It's a black person, just like I'm a white person, right? So when Zohran Mamdani, 5 years ago, checked off a box on his application for college, and he called himself Black African American, he was gaming the system. Make no mistake. And, in fact, we have a picture of his first day at college when he appeared for his freshman class. No, that's not true, but that was a great movie. You should see it. It was ahead of its time. The fact of the matter is the New York Times had the scoop on this story. Mamdani identified as Asian and African American on college application. That's not entirely true. It was black/African American. You heard it here. The New York Times did this whole expose on this. He says he doesn't consider himself black, but said the application didn't allow for the complexity of his background. What complexity? Both of his parents are of Indian descent. And if there isn't a box that says Indian, then yes, you click Asian, even though India is the subcontinent. That's how things are done here in America. I know that you're a newbie here in our country. What do you mean the complexity? Well, my parents are Indian ethnically, but I was born in Uganda. So what? This is supposed to be a racial identifier, not what country you were born in, right? It's ridiculous. All right. So The New York Times public editor apparently had to do a whole mea culpa explanation apology for even running this story. That's right. The New York Times got wind of a blockbuster story about a guy running for mayor of New York where he lied on his college application and misappropriated a racial identity for his own purposes, probably, we believe, so that it might help him get admitted. We'll dive into that in a second. And the New York Times actually had to apologize for it, for doing their job. The New York Times stumbles accidentally into a rare case of actual journalism, and now they have to apologize. Patrick Healy, the assistant managing editor for Standards and Trust, which, by the way, breaking news, the New York Times actually has standards and trust. Received reader feedback regarding our reporting on Zohran Mamdani's 2009 application to Columbia. To provide context on how the reporting came together, I wanted to share the information. So he goes through this multi-post mea culpa on X. Look at this. We're so sorry that we did this. We felt like we had to do it. And by the way, they also point out that they were about to get scooped. And that's why they ran with the story. Who was going to scoop them? The New York Post, the Washington Post, maybe ABC News? No, you're going to love this. Times pushed ahead to avoid being scooped on Mamdani Columbia story, reveals media editor at Semaphore. Who was going to scoop them? Anti-woke activist applauds his friends at the New York Times for Zohran Mamdani college application scoop. Anti-woke activists? Wait, what are you talking about? They were going to get scooped by an activist? New York Times published Mamdani college application story to avoid being scooped by Chris Rufo. Yes, Christopher Rufo. They were afraid of getting scooped by Chris Rufo, so they ran with the story. How gloriously delicious is this? New York Times rushed out story on Mamdani claiming to be black on Columbia application over fears it would be scooped by Christopher Rufo. The New York Times has a budget of probably $1 billion. Christopher Rufo is a guy in his living room with a laptop. This is exquisite. It's fantastic. It's perfect. By the way, Chris Rufo did finally run with the story on his Substack. And I want to point you to one particularly important part right here. I've obtained Mamdani's full Columbia application, which might help unravel his mystery. According to the materials, Mamdani scored a 2140 out of 2400 on the SAT. At the time, this was below the median SAT score for admitted students at Columbia, and given the prevailing distribution by race, well below the median SAT score for Asian students, but likely above the median SAT score for Black students, hence the advantage of marking Black. In other words, he might not have gotten in if he was just judged on the color of, or excuse me, on the content of his character and the actual content of his intellectual acumen. But when you throw the color of his skin in the mix, he might have a shot. Rufo goes on to explain, though, strangely, that despite having a father on the faculty and marking Black on his application, Columbia still rejected Mamdani. Two plausible theories. First, in general, Columbia is a highly competitive university with an admissions rate of less than 10%, which means that many candidates around the median will not make the cut. Second, there's a possibility that Mamdani's box-checking gambit backfired. Full application includes the name and contact information for his father, Mahmoud Mamdani, and his mother, Mira Nair, both of whom are public figures and neither of whom is Black. In other words, he probably didn't get in because they saw through it and said, dude, you're not Black. We're probably going to give this slot to, I don't know, a Black person. Now, for those of you who are saying this is splitting hairs and this is being, too pedantic, and after all, he was born in Africa. Well, it's interesting that there's sort of an unwritten rule and an understanding amongst our left-wing intellectual elites that if you're not actually racially Black, even if you were born in Africa, that would be unfair and it would be wrong to take a slot that was set aside for somebody who was in fact Black and has lived the Black American experience. Again, let's be clear here. even if you want to grant him some grace and say, well, you know, African American, I mean, he was born in Africa. Number one, he wasn't an American citizen yet. So by definition, he was not African American, number one. And number two, the whole idea of the slot being checked off on the racial page of a college application is to make sure that you have the racial makeup that the college is trying to achieve. Now, you may not like that. I don't like it either. But if you're a left-wing, radical, liberal, progressive who lives and dies on identity politics like Zohran Mamdani and those who support him, you should be offended by this. You know, just like Elizabeth Warren, the Native American from Oklahoma. But don't take my word for it. I have it from very important, high-level authority here on all things radical left-wing identity politics, that it's just not cool to do this sort of thing. I have it from this guy, Zohran Mamdani himself.
What are you? Are you Arab, Indian? What are you? You look ambiguous. You look weird. You look weird. What the fuck are you?
I'm an Indian, Ugandan, New York.
Okay, so you're African American. So would you claim the African American status like Elon Musk?
No, I would not.
Why not? You're African, but you're African, right? I knew you grew up there. Your middle name is Kwame.
I am. I'm proud to be Ugandan.
Okay.
But I think that is
what are you?
There you go. I would never claim to be African American. That would be misleading, says Zohran Mamdani, the man who claimed to be African American. As my friend Chris Plant often says, were it not for double standards, the left would have no standards at all. Which brings us to the person purportedly to be an intern on Mamdani's campaign staff. This person wearing the red and white checkered Italian restaurant tablecloth on her head. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what it is. Apparently it's something else. Screaming at police officers during one of the pro-Hamas protests, specifically singling out police officers with Arabic-sounding names. Watch this. This is bone-chilling. And as happy-go-lucky and joyful and positive and fun Zohran Mamdani seems to be with his really quirky TikTok videos, and he's always got a smile on his face. That's a charming smile. He's really charming when he's taking all of your money and centralizing all parts of our economy under the government control. But boy, he's charming. And for people who like that and say, you know what, he's just nice. I like him. I want to vote for him because, you know, Eric Adams isn't nice and Andrew Cuomo isn't nice. And Curtis Sliwa, he wears a red beret. I don't like that. So this guy's nice. He makes me feel good. Just understand, that's fine. Go ahead. But you're really voting for this woman. You're voting for her, because this is who he's going to fill his staff with in New York City.
We need the badges of the pigs. We need the badges of the pigs. To the Rahmans and the Mohammeds. To the Rahmans and the Mohammeds. To the Alis and the Abdullahs. To the Alis and the Abdullahs. To the Rafids. To the Rafids. To the Rafids. To the Rafids. To the pigs. To the pigs. Who can call themselves by the name of Islam? Who can call themselves by the name of Islam? To the Mohammeds. To the Mohammeds. Put some respect on that name. 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 La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Shahid Habib Allah.
I had to tell you something. Officer Rafid deserves a raise. I don't know how he kept his cool there. And it was kind of awesome how his brother police officer relieved him and took his place there after he had to endure that. The disrespect, the vitriol, the vile, venomous, blood-curdling behavior of these people. And as I said, I just want to point out from Eyal Yacobi, who's been covering this race and actually really hitting a lot of good stories out of New York. According to his reporting, that Islamist screaming at a Muslim New York police officer for stopping rioters from burning down New York has been revealed as an intern for Zohran Mamdani. But of course, listen, that's just the intern. Zohran Mamdani himself, he has nothing but respect for all the people who live in New York, especially his Jewish neighbors, right? Right. Yeah, he's charming with all those really smiley, fun, wacky videos, isn't he? Seems kind of racist, especially connected directly to a religious holiday and observance, doesn't it? But you know what? Listen, that's just Zohran Mamdani, just having fun, doing a skit, doing a funny video. Nothing serious there. Fine. Let's take a look at who raised him. His dad, professor at Columbia. What does Mr. Mamdani have to say for himself about world affairs?
The Nazi political project was shared by the Allies. And that political project was to turn Germany into a pure nation rid of its minorities. When the Allies defeated the Nazis and went into Eastern Europe, they began to create pure nations, to ethnically cleanse Eastern Europe of Germans, move them back into Germany. One crime doesn't wipe out another. A Christian nation state decides to cleanse it of all religious minorities, Jews and Muslims in particular, and at the same time launches a colonization experiment, the discovery of the Americas. I argue that nationalism and colonialism are not two different things. America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. In America, you have two kinds of minorities that have run the course of the history of the modern American state. The American Indian and the African American. Each has a different significance for our contemporary era. The American Indians were the people on that land when the settlers conquered it. First, they tried to eliminate as many Indians as possible. This was the first recorded genocide in modern history. Then, with the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. You can differentiate between people. The Nuremberg laws were patterned after American laws. Anyway, the U.S.
So let's get this straight. The Allies and the Nazis really kind of had the same plan in Europe. Not too big a difference, really. And Hitler was motivated and inspired by Abraham Lincoln. And then he talks about minorities and various levels of citizenship. And by the way, dude is Indian ethnically originally, came from India. He might want to take a look at his own country of origin with regard to, you know, the caste system and racial discrimination and how people are treated. Because trust me, you didn't learn that from the Europeans, pal. I don't know what's more frightening, that this is the guy who raised and taught the dude who's on the verge of being the mayor of New York City and is the shining star of the Democrat Party right now, or the fact that this guy is still a professor in good standing at Columbia University and teaching roomfuls of students on a daily basis, that this is considered intellectualism and the real truth. This tells you what's going on right now in America's universities. Oh, but that's not fair. That's the guy's dad. You can't hold him responsible for the views of his dad. What does he believe?
Because that is the amount of money that will solve everything. It comes out of an understanding that policing is something that does not create safety. And what we need to do is reinvest into things that are proven indicators and creators of safety. And the city council budget did not do that. And it's just...
Policing doesn't create safety. You want to make New York safer, policing is not the solution. You want to move beyond that old paradigm. I mean, this is considered intellectual thought and really big ideas right now in the political left, sadly. Let's have one more here. Hang on. Apparently, J.D. Vance just moments ago spoke out himself about Mr. Mamdani. Let's take a look.
And that brings me back finally to the next likely mayor of New York. Today is July 5th, 2025, which means, as all of you know, that yesterday we celebrated the 249th anniversary of the birth of our nation.
Okay, obviously this was not moments ago, but I just got the link moments ago. That's why I thought it was a new breaking video. This was from this weekend.
Now, the person who wishes to lead our largest city had, according to multiple media reports, never once publicly mentioned America's Independence Day in earnest. But when he did so this year, this is what he said, and this is an actual quote. Quote, "America is beautiful, contradictory, unfinished. I am proud of our country even as we constantly strive to make it better." End quote. There is no gratitude in those words. No sense of owing something to this land and the people who turned its wilderness into the most powerful nation on earth. Zohran Mamdani's father fled Uganda when the tyrant Idi Amin decided to ethnically cleanse his nation's Indian population. Mamdani's family fled violent racial hatred, only for him to come to this country, a country built by people he never knew, overflowing with generosity to his family, offering a haven from the kind of violent ethnic conflict that is commonplace in world history, but it is not commonplace here. And he dares, on our 249th anniversary, to congratulate it by paying homage to its incompleteness and to its, as he calls it, contradiction. I wonder, has he ever read the letters from boy soldiers in the Union Army to parents and sweethearts that they'd never see again? Has he ever visited the gravesite of a loved one who gave their life to build the kind of society where his family could escape racial theft and racial violence? Has he ever looked in the mirror and recognized that he might not be alive were it not for the generosity of a country he dares to insult on its most sacred day? Who the hell does he think that he is?
I'm glad we're saying it. I wish some of the Democrats would say it. It's funny. People are still wondering if Andrew Cuomo is really going to run in earnest since he's been humiliated by his own party. He is on the ticket and he might run. And of course, Eric Adams is trying valiantly, but he's been politically damaged quite a bit. And I don't know if he has a chance. And Curtis Lee was a nice guy. I wish him luck, but I don't know if any Republican at this point can win in New York. Possibly, maybe. It depends. Those three need to coalesce around one candidate. It would be great, really great, if a Democrat like Andrew Cuomo actually went after Zohran Mamdani the way you just saw J.D. Vance do it. It would be great if people in that city actually spoke out and said, no, we're not this bad. In fact, we're a hell of a lot better than this, and we can do better, and we must do better. Sadly, I don't know if any Democrat is willing to do that right now because they're terrified. They're terrified of their own base. They're terrified of the beast that they have created. They're terrified of being on the wrong side of Bernie and AOC and Ilhan and Zohran, and where the real power center is for what used to be a great, noble American institution. I don't know what it's become. I know what it used to be. I disagreed with it, but I never thought it wanted our destruction the way it wants it now.